Good afternoon. Welcome to the May 27th meeting of the Village Council of Pinehurst. Um, Thank you for being here post Memorial Day. I hope everyone enjoyed that. We'll begin as we usually do with an invocation. It's going to be led by Katie Horster, the Associated Pastor of the Pinehurst United Methodist Church. Please, Katie.
Thanks. Let us pray. Lord, we pray that our meeting today would be marked by cooperation and purpose, that we would be guided by wisdom, integrity, and a shared commitment to the common good. Grant us the clarity to listen well, the courage to speak truth. May our actions be rooted in service to our community. Amen.
Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. Let's begin as we usually do with reports. First, we'll ask the village manager, Doug Willardson, to bring us up to date on things. Doug?
Thank you, Mayor. This past weekend, we had the Sandhills Motoring Expo in the village. It was well attended, and I heard great things happened. And this upcoming Saturday, June 1st, is our Kids Saturday at Given Memorial Library. So this is for kids ages 3 to 10 from 10 a.m. to noon. And there will be craft and a time for them to socialize. And then also we are celebrating the 4th of July this year. Of course, we do that every year. But the 3rd will be the fireworks, and we are looking for applicants that are interested in being in the parade. So we have both the pet parade at 9:45 and then the regular parade. So you or anyone you know is interested in joining, reach out either to the Parks and Rec Department, or they can find more information on our website under events. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of items to report on. I attended the Pinewild property owners meeting and where they elected officers, and they provided an update of a lot of the construction activity going on within the gates of Pinewild. We may hear more of that later, but it was a well-run and organized meeting. So they're an active community. I also attended the Sandhills Motoring event that the village manager referenced, and handed out a trophy to one of the winners. So, I last week attended the Sandhills Metropolitan Planning Organization as a Pinehurst representative, and we had an update on some projects that are going on, and we are anticipating additional meetings through the course of the summer, and some of these projects may impact us, and we'll be alert and speak up for the residents of Pinehurst, and we'll keep you posted as appropriate. And lastly, I attended the Historic Preservation Commission meeting last week, and one of the applicants before the HPC was the former mayor of Pinehurst, Mayor Strickland. So I just mentioned that to show you that nobody gets a free ride regarding the regulations in our community. And he had to get up there and make his case, and he got the okay from the commission to remove a tree. So thank you. Now I'll turn to Dr. Morgan.
Thank you. Couple things. The CPRC, the Center Pines Regional Council meeting will be tomorrow. It'll be online. I'll be attending that. And we should be finalizing the budget for that. As I mentioned to you before, while there are changes that are going on, I do not expect them to affect Pinehurst on there. And then I know we will have one meeting before this date, but June 14th is Flag Day. And it's also the Army's birthday, which will be the Army's 250th birthday, so it's kind of a big deal. You'll probably see some stuff that's going to happen around Fort Bragg secondary to this, because they're pretty proud of the 250th year. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. John Taylor?
I attended the NAC meeting, I guess a week ago yesterday, and I thought there was a lot of good dialogue around a couple of issues, presentation that Doug made and so forth. There are still several neighborhoods that do not have representatives at all, in addition to some representatives whose terms are expiring. So I would encourage any member of the public who would like to get involved in, I'd call it a first toe in the water in how things work. It'd be a great place to start. And you can contact the village office if you have any further questions, or me for that matter. Also attended the SMPO meeting, and they are in the early stages or the beginning stages of figuring out new projects that will be proposed that will have to go through the full scoring and winnowing down at the state level. So that process is just beginning to kick off now, but will be coming up. And I believe the technical coordinating committee mentioned that they have 9 possible candidates that they will be proposing to the board for final approval. We'll see what happens there. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Barb Ficklin.
Thank you. Just one reminder of an upcoming event. The Preservation North Carolina Association will be sponsoring a historic tour here in Pinehurst on June 7th. Registration is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. At Thistledew, followed by a variety of different tours, information online. So if you're interested in a great deal of Pinehurst and a lot of interesting buildings and homes, be sure to hit their website, and tickets are available online at $50.
Okay, thank you. Jack Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the car event on Sunday. It's a beautiful day. Of course, it had to be, because I don't think most of those cars has ever seen a drop of rain, to tell you the truth. They're really something else. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, we had a general meeting of the Fort Bragg Regional Land Use Advisory Council, and a couple things happened during that. We had it over in the community center in Southern Pines, where the director of planning presented interesting presentation on their development of their comprehensive plan, and I believe I sent the slides from that. There's a couple of really interesting slides that we put in our pocket when we finally get around to our comprehensive plan. They could be useful as far as direction. So I thought that was a very useful event. The other thing we did is drafted a letter to the legislatures in the North Carolina legislation relative to the upcoming potential bills that could potentially restrict land use issues. And the reason it's important, the Fort Bragg Regional Land Use Advisory Commission represents 7 counties and 20 municipalities. And our concern is that, and I'll just read part of it, says provisions in pending legislation require local governments to permit and or require land uses and structures that are explicitly incompatible with the training and operations occurring on and around Fort Bragg. So that's a key issue to the RLUAC, because we don't want any land uses that could potentially restrict the mission of Fort Bragg. So that went to among a number of legislatures up in Raleigh.
That's good to hear. And if you could share that letter with the council, that would be helpful, or how we can get our hands on it, because I think it'd be useful to let residents know about that aspect of 20 municipalities in the scope of.
Yeah, and all the counties too. And the board does have a number of county commissioners and mayors from these various communities on the board. So on the commission, I mean. So they do have some concerns.
Jack, is there also the possibility that for safety reasons, it would be necessary for properties outside the fort to have some changes made to them based on changes the fort might make inside its boundaries?
Well, The Fort Bragg Regional Land Use Advisory Commission reviews all land use changes within these counties and the affected communities to see what, reviews all changes. And those changes that appear to potentially impede, restrict, and/or affect the mission, either the mission or the environmental concerns that Fort Bragg has, we give advice and counsel as to whether or not those could be modified slightly so that they wouldn't affect us. So there's quite a bit of representation. It goes everywhere from airspace concerns to noise concerns, because as you guys know, there's a considerable amount of heavy-duty firing going on from time to time, and you certainly don't want to see a housing development built to the point where they're going to have a problem with noise in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Jack, and fellow council members. We'll move on to item number 4, the motion to approve the consent agenda. I think there's A and B. I'd like to address them as such, if that's okay. A, and taking one up, and then the budget amendment report. It would be good if we just had a quick little refresher on that. So all these items are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held unless requested by a member of the village council. So the first 3 items are the approval of village council meeting minutes of May 13th regular meeting, May 13th work session minutes, and May 13th closed session minutes. Is there a
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda under letter A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've approved that. Now we have the budget amendments report, and unless if the village manager would like to just run us over this so people know what we're doing to them.
Yep. So our budget ordinance allows me to approve budget transfers up to $25,000, and so we do report that to the council at the next meeting. So this is just a report of amendments that I have approved, and just so you're aware of what has happened.
Okay, it's not excessive large amount either. So just for those of you who may be listening or watching, it's around $10,000 or so.
Yeah, and sorry. Not a lot of these happen until the end of the year when we're starting to run low on some of our counts, so that's why you may see these a little bit at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the budget amendments report?
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda under section B.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've adopted that. That is the end of the consent agenda. We now are entering the public comments portion of the council meeting. Here's the list. We have some folks who have signed up to address the council on some issues, and it looks like the indication here is the 3 people I'll be calling up are want to discuss the topic of fences, and when they have concluded, if there's anybody who has not signed up and would still like to speak, they're welcome to come forward and speak. So why don't we begin with Jackie Taylor. Please come forward, speak into the microphone, state your name and address.
I'm Jackie Taylor, and my address is 35 Quail Run in Pinehurst. It's in Clarendon Gardens. Thank you, Mayor and Councilmen, for the opportunity to speak today about an issue that affects not just our gardens, but the character and sustainability of our entire community. We all love where we live. One of the things that makes our small town, particularly my neighborhood, truly special is the natural beauty. There's tree-lined streets, blooming flowers, and thoughtfully landscaped yards. These aren't just decorative elements. Trees, shrubs, and flowers improve our air quality, support pollinators, and make where we live so special. But this beauty is being quietly and steadily eroded by deer. Now, I'm not here to discuss how to get rid of the deer. They're part of the beauty of Pinehurst, in my opinion. I'm here in hope to bring light to a much-needed amendment to our current fence ordinance. Our community has wisely implemented a fence ordinance to maintain open sightlines and preserve neighborhood aesthetics. We respect that. We want a community that feels connected and not walled off. 2 years ago, when building our home, Pinehurst required that I plant a shrub, flower, or tree for every 6 feet around my house. That was about 42 plants. It was countless dollars and countless hours of work by myself and my husband and my parents. Although I tried to use deer-resistant plants and strategies to keep the deer away, I now have less than half of my landscaping plants because the deer have nibbled them to death. As I have lost plants, I've tried to replant them with others. Last spring, I planted 2 ornamental peach trees at the end of my driveway. I thought that being near the road, they might be safe from the deer. But when they started getting eaten, I was forced to do something about it. I purchased very decorative and sturdy iron stands that stop the deer from eating these trees. The trees have doubled in size this past year, but they're not quite tall enough to withstand the deer yet. When I received a letter from Pinehurst telling me that I either needed to get a fence permit or remove the structures, honestly, I was dumbfounded. It's counterproductive for Pinehurst to require the implementation of plants and trees, but not allow the protection of them. So here's the challenge we face. How do we protect our natural and personal investments from deer damage while still honoring the spirit of the fence ordinance? The answer isn't in ignoring the problem and hoping it goes away. It's in revisiting and redefining our local policies to strike a better balance between ecological protection and community standards. I'm asking that the council make this issue a priority, amending our fence ordinance so that we can protect the plants and trees that make our community so beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you. Next individual, Scott and Liz Chamberlain. Yeah. Please speak into the microphone, state your name and where you live.
Yes, indeed. I am Scott Chamberlain,
And I'm Liz Myers Chamberlain.
and gentlemen and gentle lady. Thank you for allowing us to address this. We're coming to you this evening for the same reason that Jackie Taylor has just spoken on. We have lived in the Clareton Gardens community now for almost 7 years. We moved there in October of 18. And after we moved in, we learned from a number of our neighbors that the acre lot that we're on was one of the most heavily forested areas in the entire community, much of which had to be removed in order for the developer to build a home. This included longleaf pine, as well as a tremendous amount of understory, most of which, as we understand it from neighbors, was native to Carolina. So it has been our goal, Lizzie and I, since we moved into the community, to restore the native understory by carefully designing and growing plants of a native habitat in and around the property.
And not only did we want to plant them for their aesthetic value, but as part of the larger picture. We are deeply concerned about what we humans are doing to the natural world.
You might be aware that we are currently causing what is known as the 6th mass extinction on this planet, which threatens life on Earth. We are experiencing a massive die-off of plants, animals, birds, bees, insects, all forms of natural life. And one of the reasons for this die-off has basically been the loss of the natural habitat.
I'm a member of the organization Homegrown National Park, led by the now famous entomologist Dr. Doug Tallamy. His organization advocates for all of us, ordinary citizens, to plant native plants in our own yards to drastically increase natural habitat worldwide. By restoring native habitat, we provide food, shelter, and an environment within which native species can reproduce and thrive. Without this support, they will continue to die, and we are deeply concerned about what will happen to life on Earth if they do.
So after planting small, newly native plants that we had grown from seeds, we knew it was imperative, especially given the deer population in the gardens, to protect them and to nurture them. So the first time in the spring of 2019, even though all of our seedlings were designated deer resistant, they all were quickly consumed by the deer, which, as I understand it from talking to many of the neighbors, our head now runs about 50 count in the community of Clareton Gardens.
And we're grateful that we live in such a wonderful forested area that can support these beautiful creatures. We love the deer, and we want to live in harmony with them.
So, the subsequent times that we have planted native plants to Carolina, we use temporary wire mesh enclosures to prevent the deer from eating them, and it has worked. In fact, today we went out and we counted 18 native shrubs and trees that over the last 7 years that we have planted that have matured enough to where we remove the wire mesh enclosures just after a year or so. And now they're thriving, and the deer won't touch them.
We currently have about a half dozen plantings in our front yard that have wire mesh enclosures around them, and that temporary wire mesh enclosures around them, and intend to remove them all at such time as they are established and the deer will not eat them.
We're asking the board to please either write an addendum to the existing ordinance for the village or create a new ordinance that allows us to restore the native habitat to our property, which only will enhance the beauty, sustainability, and biodiversity of the village of Pinehurst. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the first time we've had such a well-orchestrated joint appearance by people. That was just excellent. And now we'll hear from Mr. Lee Thomas.
Hello, I'm Lee Thomas, 150 Quail Run, Clarendon Gardens, and I want to thank you for the privilege to talk to you today. And I hope you'll take the subject of fences, quote, I put quotation marks around that, under study to allow the protective enclosures to be placed around shrubs and plants and small trees. I agree with the previous three speakers and what they already had to say. Excuse me. My contention is that the ordinance as written doesn't apply to these enclosures. They are not fences. And if I would be willing to bet that if you ask 10 people, random people, to draw a picture of a fence, it wouldn't be of one of these enclosures around a shrub. And so I believe the definition itself doesn't apply, and that the ordinance doesn't really apply what we are doing to protect individual plants, shrubs, and small trees. Let's see. I'm sure most of us who use these enclosures, we also use deer deterrents, deer sprays, which is what the BOP recommends, and also planting deer-resistant plants. It's not effective. There was last evening, there was a Japanese fern that deers aren't supposed to like, and there was a deer munching on the Japanese fern. There are countless plants. In fact, whenever I go to the nursery, I always look up each plant to make sure it's deer resistant, and before I purchase it. But it's no guarantee. Iron plants shredded last year. I won't go through a whole list, but the other is, so if that tool is taking away from us as homeowners. That's one less thing that we have to beautify our neighborhood and our homes, and therefore Pinehurst. The other side of it, since the sprays and the deer-resistant plants aren't a sure thing, those are two other strikes against this, so to speak. Another interesting ordinance that Pinehurst has, we're not allowed to feed the deer although we're allowed to feed them our plants. There is one exception, and I'm not going to ask you all to tell me what the exception is to our feeding the deer, such as corn. And if we were able to give them an alternative food source, then our flora would be more safe and to fill their bellies up with something else. But we're not allowed to do that, except the state allows us to feed the deer if we are enticing them to our property in order to kill them. We can have hunters with bows and arrows to come and shoot the deer on our property, or we ourselves can shoot them. That is a time when we're allowed to use an alternative food source, which I find to be kind of ironic. We're not allowed to feed them to coexist, but we're allowed to feed them to eliminate them. Let me see if there's anything else that I have to say. No, that's about it. I just hope you guys take it under consideration, give it some study so that the verbiage can be changed to the ordinance to allow this particular purpose, and we'd be greatly appreciative of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, real quickly, Dr. Morgan brought this issue up at the last meeting, and we've had discussions, and we're working on a draft ordinance to address it.
Okay. So you just heard what the village manager said. It is Dr. Morgan and Councilwoman Ficklin several months ago sort of put their heads together and came up with a few thoughts on what we would do, because we've heard from people earlier about the deer population, and they're working on it, and I suspect that sometime this summer we'll be able to address this in a fashion where the action we take can be productive. Yeah, Mr. Chamberlain, did you want to come up once more?
I don't need to come up. My concern is we have been told that within 30 days, if these are not removed, that we will be fined $500 a day.
The fences.
All due respect, sir, we're months away from that. We're not the only three, believe me. If you drive through Clarendon Gardens, there are a lot of these wire meshes protecting foliage from the deer. How are we to proceed with this?
Okay.
Already cost us hundreds of dollars, every family, to put them up or to replace. What do you suggest at this stage?
Yeah. Can we
Yeah, we
suspend
could
that?
reach out to those we send an enforcement letter to and let you know that we're looking at it, and we can put things on pause for now.
I think we need to just make sure that we are putting it on pause.
Yeah.
Okay, for that, and so we'll moratorium on this.
Okay. I think there's a consensus up here among the council members that we would
And
pause that.
Mr. Chamberlain, they're doing their job. We have to approve that, not them. So we have a great staff that's working on it. I've got no problem in promoting this to give a moratorium for this. We have discussed it. I did bring this up on the last meeting. One of the questions I had for Mr. Willardson here is that we did discuss working on this in a work session. Is this going to be discussed sometime this month or in June?
In June, yeah.
Okay, so in June we'll be able to address that, and I don't think there's a problem with the consensus on not having you move your enclosures or fences, however you want to define this at this point in time. Is that
Yeah. I think that's what we want to agree to.
so?
Pause things as we work out a solution, so you're not being fined, and we're on a track to find a solution that's practical. So, okay. Let me ask, is there anyone else who has not spoken who would like to speak on any topic at all? Hearing none, that will end the public comments period for this village council meeting, and we will move on to item number 6, resolutions. And we have one resolution, and that is to consider Resolution 25-15, the reappointment of Ms. Angelique Fabiani to the Historic Preservation Commission. I see her here. And Doug, is there anything you'd like to say, or we can ask Angelique to come up for a minute?
only that Angelique has served well, and so we are happy to have her continue in her service.
Okay.
I would further add, as having been chair at the time she was interviewed and ultimately first came on the commission, that I would second Doug's comments, so.
That's great. Come up, please, and so you can share a little bit about yourself, your background with the community. Wherever you like, right there is fine. This won't be long. We just want people to know who you are.
Hello, I'm Angelique Fabiani. I've served on the Historic Preservation Commission for the past 2 years, and I've enjoyed my time and service, and I'd be happy to continue for another 2 years. I've lived in Pinehurst with my family since 2018. I'm a resident of Pinehurst number 6, and I love living here. I love the character and architectural beauty of the village, and I just really believe in our mission, which is to preserve the character as well as just help promote the future and make sure that the growth is compatible with the village of Pinehurst as it is today.
Okay. Any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Okay. Then we'll entertain a motion for Resolution 6.A.
I
I
move-
move to approve, I'm sorry. I move to approve Resolution 25-15, reappointment of Ms. Angelique Fabiani to the Historic Preservation Commission effective June 1st, 2025, to serve at the pleasure of the council until the end of her term on May 31, 2027.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Congratulations. Thank you for your work, and look forward to your continued work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is a good reminder about the importance of citizens joining our advisory committees and neighborhood advisory committee and our other ones like Historic Preservation Commission or the Planning and Zoning Board. There's turnover among those, and there's a process where you can apply online, an application on the website. And we really, it's important. Our community is dependent on volunteers helping in these efforts, and we look forward to people who want to join. All righty, we can now move on to item 7, which is a public hearing on the FY26 budget. So we have now entered. Well, we'll need a motion to enter.
All right, I move to recess the regular meeting and enter into the public meeting,
All
public
those in-
hearing, excuse me.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Those in favor?
Aye.
We are now in a public hearing on the budget for FY26.
Yep.
Let's.
Mr.
What, you wanna
Mayor, I
start?
have some slides to share to just kind of give us an overview, and then we can hear from any members of the public that would like to share their opinions on the budget. If That's okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So in December we met and we held a retreat, and our goal was to come up with a procedure and direction from the council to what we wanted to accomplish in the next budget. So we have reviewed that concept, and we reviewed this again in April to talk about, make sure that we were all on the same page. And so this is the cumulative work of all that. And so what we had discussed is that these are our key initiatives from the library, our PDO update, discussion of the Firebirdy, transportation, STR compliance, and redevelopment of the Village Place. So those are all areas we're trying to address and make sure we're moving forward in this next budget. Specifically, the FY26 budget is $31.5 million. It's 8% less than our last year's budget. And the original budget request, we cut down $1.4 million as the budget team to get to what we thought was a sustainable budget for the future. It maintains the property tax rate at 22.5 cents. And we, like I mentioned, we're trying to make sure that this budget is sustainable going forward. As we've discussed this over the last month or two, we did remove $300,000 in capital items, $200,000 for the water tank, and $100,000 for the solid brine storage building. Those are both projects that are probably going to be happening, but the timeline is still a little bit out there, so we figured we could take it out of the budget, and if we need to move it forward, we can do so with the fund balance appropriation. Also, since we first presented the budget, we had a meeting in which Enterprise came and presented the option for us to lease vehicles instead of purchasing them outright. And we agreed to move forward on that, and so there were some changes within the budget to address that. Overall, we reduced the fund balance appropriation by just over $200,000 on that. So here's a look at the FY26 general fund. So this assumes a 0.8% growth in the real property tax. It's based on about 75 new homes being constructed, and it assumes a 1.7% increase in sales tax over last year. We, if you recall, discussed sales tax quite a bit, how it had been growing at a much higher rate, but the rate of growth has slowed over the last couple of years. And then we have a $3.5 million fund balance appropriation to fund the library and other significant capital projects. Here it is in detail. I'm not going to talk about this, but if we need to refer to it later on, we can. And expenditures. So we have built in there merit pay increases and cost of living adjustments, as well as a 5% increase due to our wage study adjustments. So that wage study will be presented to council in June. But we have based a 5% increase on that, and based on the initial feedback we've been receiving from the consultant, we believe that will be enough to fund what his recommendation is. And there was one new full-time equivalent entered into the budget, a building and grounds employee that would start mid-year. And then here is another slide with lots of numbers that I won't go into unless we need to. And here is our expenditures by function. So at the department level, we spend most of our money on public safety, followed by transportation and then recreation. So some significant operating amounts in our budget that are different from last year. About $1.3 million in wage and salary adjustments overall, the salary lines within the budget. A little bit of change in principal and interest for leased vehicles. We have insurance increases. Our pension contribution has also gone up. And harness track repair, this is the first one that's kind of one that we actually have a little more control over and say in. That's an increase of about $78,000 for capital improvements down there. And then we have our property line liability insurance increase as well. And then here are some significant capital items that are built within the budget. So again, the 19 vehicles that we will now be leasing instead of purchasing has been built into the budget as previously discussed. Also within the budget is the Sand Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization. We are the lead planning agency, so their budget is built within our budget. And here's the layout of what it looks like this year compared to the past years. This past year we did hire a full-time employee for the SMPO, and we are working towards hiring a consultant to develop a metropolitan transportation plan, which is what the bulk of the operating expenditures will go towards.
Doug, just two things quickly. First of all, the SMPO hired the person. That's not there's a portion of that that's paid by the village, but for the benefit of the public, we are not picking up that entire cost. And if you could go back just a page or two, all right, that's fine. Again, for the benefit of the public, these page references are to the full document that will be produced. So that's pages 114 to 117 out of what is roughly a 160-page document.
Yep. For
members of the public who wish to dig into that.
Yeah, and good point. That budget is available online on the village's website. And we mentioned SMPO. Exactly how you said, we are only one contributor into that. There's 9 other communities. So the village's membership dues are about $26,000. So that's how much we are contributing towards that. And I guess that is all I have to share.
Can you clarify something for me?
Yep.
I think you may have to go back to page 8, or maybe it's 11. It says changes.
This one, or?
No, let's go to 8. Okay, this one here. I couldn't balance this in my mind. I didn't know where where things were coming from or going to. So we've taken out $300,000 in capital, right?
Right.
I got that. Now, the last 5 items, do they increase or decrease the fund balance?
So it's reducing the amount that we will have to appropriate from fund balance by the $200,000. So Dana actually has prepared a very nice crossover with the, the 20 things she had to change from no longer purchasing vehicles and now leasing them. And actually, I think I may have shared that with you. If not, we can certainly do that. But
We've added $80,000 in other revenues. That's money coming in.
yep. So that first one is we will be selling vehicles because we will be now leasing new ones. So that 80,000 is assuming we
And
sell
the
old vehicles.
829 is a debt we are taking on.
Yep. That is the lease of the new vehicles.
And then 526 is additional capital for acquiring the 19 vehicles. And that shows up in 2026 fiscal year.
Yep.
$180,000 is yet another debt service item. Is that correct?
That's correct. So ultimately, instead of spending all the money up front to purchase them, we're spending a little bit less and we'll be leasing these over time.
And the sum of all those changes, no, that isn't true. We reduced the fund balance appropriations because we didn't need that much money out of our savings. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I've
Doug,
got a,
Is there not also a reduction in the expected cash outlay that we would have spent if we were buying vehicles, but we're not buying them? We have the initial cost of the acquisition through the lease program, and that number's not on here.
I think it's built in within the capital. I will, the crossover sheet that Dana prepared will very much clarify all this. So
I've got a couple questions and then make an observation. First of all, I want to echo what Doug's mentioned about the website availability for residents who want to drill down a little more into the detail. And I had a question on, here we go, page 14. VOP pays 100% of employee health, dental, vision insurance with an estimated 10% increase in premiums. How does that compare to does Southern Pines and Aberdeen also pay 100% of employee health, dental, and vision?
So I believe Aberdeen does, and Southern Pines pays 95%. I would say it's not unusual for communities around here to pay 100%.
Okay, that's great. Is Moore County generally the same way it treats its employees?
I believe Moore County is 100%. Yeah.
100%, great. Question, I didn't know where we stood in the spectrum of things. I've mentioned before, and I don't know if this is the time or we should wait until June 10th. This is a very good budget. It's a restrains spending. It actually reduces spending, as was mentioned a little while ago, from $34 million last year to about $31 million this year, and that's a good step in the right direction. The council and the staff deserve credit for that. But I do think it's still the tax rate remains flat, but we are still leaving in our fund balance allocation $18.8 million, which is a percentage of our budget of about 60%. Now, our policy is that it always be above 30%. So we are very healthy in that amount of money that we've saved. So we should be the envy of most communities, and it's a sign of being well managed and careful in our expenditures. But I do think that the opportunity presents itself to make a slight reduction in our tax rate. I noticed the county is going to cut their tax rate by 1.5 cents, and they have debt that they need to handle. We manage things very well. We have very little debt at all, if any at all to speak of, other than the sort of recurring regular things when we lease copy machines and so forth. The reduction of a half penny in this tax rate, if my math is right, and I'm assuming it is because I base it on Dana, it's about $300,000 is what it costs for half a penny. And so if we were to reduce it by that, it would leave us with, instead of 18.8 million, we'd have 18.5 million in our budget, in our reserve fund there, fund balance authority to be precise. I think that given all the other, I want to call them tax increases, not that we impose on residents, but that are being imposed by the insurance commissioner and by the health insurance premiums and so forth, the little we can do to help maybe lessen that load for our residents is worthwhile. I think that for 3 straight years, we as a council have reduced taxes, and we've done it carefully. We had the benefit of going through a significant increase in our property values here in the village of Pinehurst, which really caused a lot of a need to reduce our tax rate. And we know that in a couple of years, they're going to be back at that in Moore County. They will, last time we went through it, the average home owner property valuation was up 50%. I don't think that's going to happen again, but even if it's 1/3 of last year, it would be increasing 17%. But that's 2 years away, really. Given that the budget we'll be adopting will be just for FY26, what's right in front of us, given our track record, I think we have an opportunity here to make a slight decrease in our tax rate, and then once again next year we'll revisit the rate and the revenue and so forth as we look down the road. It is 2 things that I want to note. Fortunately, we are in a position where we can spend as much as we do, which is basically almost everything everything we're requested to spend in the public safety area, which is the function of a municipality. And that's a good situation to be in. As you look down the road in these projections, and we got to keep in mind, they're projections. No one's looking for perfection. There's a point where expenditures exceed revenues. And so we've talked about in the past, we just have to keep watching that. And I think we always have the ability to call an audible as need be, as a council or as staff, if they see something that is coming around the bend that or something unexpected that happens out there. So I don't have anything else to add other than I'm going to ask for guidance as to whether or not we as a council would like to formally take up the slight property tax rate reduction I'm talking about now, or if we'd want to take it up at our next meeting. I'm open to whatever the council would like to do.
Well, I think you make an eloquent argument for a minor reduction now. However, the one thing that would concern me a great deal would be that the projection and the trend line on the estimated operating margin is clearly trending up to a point where it could be difficult for the village. And in fact, in a year or two, if in fact we hold to these numbers, and I have no reason to believe that they won't come true, we would have a much larger increase in a year or so than we would be planning right now, as a matter of fact. or we'd have to increase at least 2 years in a row potentially. So that would be a major concern.
Right. Well, in response to what you just said, the projection, again, for next year is the 22.5 cent, which is also what's in the budget right now. I'm saying drop this year to 22. So next year, you're right, but next year, what we're looking at as a projected fund balance allocation figure at the end of the year is 48%. So we're in a position where we have, I don't know if the correct word is excessive, but we have a healthy amount above our policy line of cash in our account.
Oh, I agree. The fund balance number is more than satisfactory, let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
And as we've seen in the past, because of the cycles of budgets and the lapses sometimes in personnel and the other things that occur, we have always met the estimated operating margin in the past. And I think even as you look out on the forecast, it looks very excessive in FY30. But the reason that I'm not panicking about it, and I haven't heard anyone else panic about it, is that they always expect that is going to come down, and they've always been able to predict that correctly. Since I've been on the council or mayor. So anyway.
Well, yeah, my concern is in the operating margin, and in particular when I believe all the numbers, I believe our 5-year forecast, but our 5-year forecast relative to headcount, the only headcount increase is in the fire department, if we should, do the quick response unit, and in the library, which is pretty much in the plan. That would tell me that no other department is going to have one other headcount increase in the next 5 years. That's, in my opinion, that's sort of an unlikely event, but you never know. This 5-year forecast was based upon our best forecast and the input from the departments. But I still think that there's an exposure there, particularly in the operating margin, and the operating margin is dramatically affected by the number of employees.
Let me just one point there. I have looked back 5 years about our forecasts, okay? Because I too am curious about where we consistently underestimate, and these are not bad things that I'm about to describe. These are just actual things about how forecasting works. We underestimate the revenues that will be coming in, and we overestimate the expenditures. And the reasons are the same whether you're sitting in a village of Pinehurst of this size or other communities. You gain more revenue either because the sales tax increases bigger than you ever thought, property values go up, and your expenditures recede a little because you're lapsing in hiring, or you cancel something that you thought you were going to do, or somebody comes in with a much better bid than you originally estimated would be the cost. So that's what makes me not as concerned, I think, as you've expressed, Jack. And in our case, in every case, even in those out years, which you point out, the operating margin gets higher than we want it to be. Even in the out years, we're at 41.1% projected in our reserve allocation. We're nowhere near it. So anyway, I've said enough. Go ahead. I think.
No, I think you're right. There's no impending disaster here. I mean, we're just sort of discussing different approaches, and I'd leave it to some others to figure that out a little best.
I had more of a generic question. Just we're required statutorily to hold this public hearing on the budget.
Right.
And the purpose is to give the public an opportunity, and we will have a second cut at these sorts of things in June before this is finalized. Is that correct?
That's true. So we do need to hold the public hearing, and so we need to hear from the public. I think we could have this discussion today or at our next meeting.
Fine.
It needs to happen.
I just don't want to jam staff on January. On
Oh,
June
absolutely.
10th. So whatever we can take away.
So
today.
I will just add a couple of comments very quickly. First of all, Jack, the topic you raised, which we also talked about at our last meeting, of the growth rate of operating expenses versus operating income, I think is going to be a highlight of our strategic planning progress. We have to address it, right? And we're fine for this year, we're presumably fine for next year, but we have to address it. That's our collective responsibility. Second thing I would just mention, and Doug, are we going through the additional slides you have on the 5-year? Or were we just doing
I was
the
just going to
budget
do
here?
this because it's the 26th public hearing. Yeah.
Okay. I would just mention quickly that at our last meeting, and what has not really been addressed here is we removed over $18 million worth of potential capital expenditures. Now, some of those may come back in the future, but I think we've done a pretty good job at trying to be sure that the overall budget, operating and capital, is well managed. The third thing that I would say is, and this is a good thing that we forecast conservatively, but we are assuming zero tax base increase in fiscal 28, but calendar 27. It certainly is possible. I believe in 2015, the county did not revalue because those valuations would have gone down. They stayed with the same number from 2011, and then they did a revaluation in 2019. So games can always be played, but I think we're conservative enough here. I came to the $300,000 tax reduction a different way, either a combination of capital that we've eliminated for the moment, or, and I give Doug great credit for strategic thinking, 2 senior positions that existed a year ago that, in one case, it was Doug's position because he was promoted, and the other someone who left us, who he's decided not to fill. And I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to guess that round numbers, that was $300,000 in total compensation for those 2 positions, maybe even a touch more.
Probably roughly.
And so I think we can justify it on a 1-year basis, consistent with addressing the issue on the operating expenses. That'd be
I will say that my former position has already been eliminated, so it's not included in the budget amount. So that's money that cannot be removed because it already was.
And it may come back at some other point, but at the moment, we would anticipate going forward, that position is gone.
If you're reducing the tax rate to basically bring down the fund, why don't we just take it down to 12 million and go 11 cents of a reduction? And the reason I'm asking there is that, okay, if you're just saying you're randomly gonna, well, not randomly, but you're saying half a cent reduction here after we've gone through the other process here, I got it. But if your intention is to bring it down, let's take it down to 12 million, just say, let's knock out 11 cents, and then you go by year budget. And the reason that we don't typically do that is because we try to plan for a 5-year budget, and granted it's only, we're locked in for a year, which you've identified, but you end up having that fund to be able to purchase some of these bigger items that we talked about. And I think that's a very responsible way, and it certainly has been very effective in managing our village, and we've gotten lots of awards on the fiscal management of the village and the strength of where we're at. I don't want to hold anything extra from the taxpayers, but the point I'm bringing up is if you're going to go for it, go for the whole enchilada. Give them the whole thing back.
Well,
but if you're going to plan for 5 years, let's plan for 5 years.
Well,
okay?
Yeah.
And let's base it on what our finance department is saying, what's the best route to go for 5 years. That's number one. Number two on here, and I brought this up on numerous occasions, especially when you're talking about a municipal budget. If you want to cut taxes, you cut spending. If all you're doing is lowering a tax rate and you're not addressing the spending, that's a great thing for the media, but it's not helping us out financially, okay? So cutting taxes means cutting spending, and we have done a good job with that. So I would rather focus on that, just as John talked about, the millions of dollars we've taken out of the long-term budget that's on here. But I would rely on the projections we have for from our finance department here as to what we think is ethical and responsible and what we've done. But hey, if you want to cut, let's not stop at a half penny.
Well, I guess when you get to 12 cents as you're proposing, I mean, I've
Actually,
I'm not
11
one-
cents.
11
But
cents.
but
Okay.
that takes us
I
down to
didn't
12
wanna-
million. How about that?
Okay.
That's using your 300,000 metric there. So I did not talk to Dana first. I'm just
Okay.
assuming you're correct.
Yes. Well, I've heard her say it before, so I'll be married to it. I guess one, when I hear a number that large, though, I don't mind voting to reduce taxes. I sort of put my Jack Farrell hat on, and I think.
But
to
again,
myself,
you're confusing lowering taxes, Pat.
Yeah.
Okay? It's lowering spending.
And
Okay?
we've done a good job on that.
Got
but
it.
if you are lowering spending,
And I agree.
then there's
I'm
and-
very proud of this council because we lowered it.
and we are, and then you're looking at your fund balance allocation. Okay, so you could lower your taxes just a little,
Mhm.
and that's what pops up on my radar screen. There's nowhere here that I get nervous because we're going to have somewhere between 60 and 40% right now of a fund balance allocation when what our policy says is 30%.
I got it.
And so
I mean, it's going to lower down. We got a young man in the audience here. I want to be able to use the library in a few years.
he
okay.
will. That money we've set aside.
All
for it.
right, so we're going to make sure that we got different things that are
We've got-
allocated
that's
for that we can
covered.
do. Okay.
That's covered. And we've been trying to spend it for a while there, but we've got other issues.
There's a
on-
budget process on here
Say that?
there's a budget process, okay, in which they present a different budget to us.
Yes.
You did the same thing last year.
Yes.
Okay, at about this time, you said let's lower a penny on there to reduce the fund balance.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mentioned that. I mentioned I was going to do it this year too.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
I
again,
mentioned, I mentioned it about a month ago. because
granted, it's half a penny. I
because
say let's go 11 cents.
when you see the amount, it's the same. I have
Okay.
the same reaction to it as I did the first time I looked at a fund balance allocation, and I got to understand what it was when I was a first-time council member. And once I understood it, I said, "Wow, we have an opportunity to reduce just a little from the taxpayers." Because although Pinehurst is known as a well-off community, and there are a lot of people on fixed incomes, though, and
Okay.
some are better fixed than others. Okay, I put it that way. There are some that aren't as fixed as Thurston Howell III, and so it's one way to give them a little bit more money in their pocket. I know it's not much, but that's where I'm coming from on that.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is that we're making an adjustment here to a well thought out budget that's been
Yeah,
established. here.
it's a minor
Okay?
adjustment.
It's a minor adjustment. I got it. But if you're going to go that direction,
You want to go?
go 11 cents.
Oh,
Okay, if
I
you're going
wouldn't
to do
agree.
it, do it. All right.
Wouldn't agree
And
with
then you go
going
year to year. If not, let's go with a set
Jack, are you willing to go
plan
11 cents?
budget that's out there.
No, I don't buy the whole enchilada. So I would think that there's a good argument on either side to either come down a half a cent. We clearly can do it, without jeopardizing the future or anything, to my knowledge. Or we could keep it the same based upon my observation. So I think we have opportunity to go either direction.
Yeah.
We do
Can I
not
jump-
have an opportunity to do the whole enchilada. I think might be a little bit too radical for my blood.
Jack
So
Farrell.
we can decide either way. I'm happy either way.
So,
you had
yeah,
some-
let me say a few things. So, first of all, a half-cent reduction on the median valued home in Pinehurst is about $25 a year. So, we're not talking about very much money.
No, we're not.
Also, the problem we have here in Pinehurst is that our ongoing expenditures, our ongoing revenues are not keeping up with our ongoing expenditures. So, we have built into the 5-year plan 2 tax increases. You could certainly reduce this year's tax, but then you'd have to just add more into the 5-year plan that we've already built out. So we know there's future tax increases on the horizon. Why would we lower it now to maybe bring it up even
Okay.
more in the future? What we should be doing is planning for a stable tax rate.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. As I said, I went back and looked at 5 years of our planning, both on the expenditure side and on the revenue side. And if you go back 5 years, this budget was supposed to have a tax rate of 31 cents. And, you know, a lot of intervening things happened in that time period. We got a windfall from the American Rescue Plan. We got the property tax valuation that increased and was producing a little more revenue. We had increased sales revenue at that. And so that changed it so that right now we're looking at 22.5 cents, not the 31 cents that we were staring at if we held this paper up 5 years ago. And so that's why I'd much rather reduce the tax rate now by a half a penny. And then next year, let's see where we're at. We may need to raise it next year, but I don't think it's automatic. And if we do, we raise the taxes. And if something new comes up, we raise.
Go that route. I'd be okay with that. My only point is I think the exposure is on the expense side.
I agree with
I mean, we haven't even gotten the price on the library yet. Okay, we may get some sticker shock on that one, which concerns me greatly. We may not. Who knows? But I'm a little concerned on the expense side. That's where I'm coming from.
I am too. But we have that big reserve fund there.
I would just mention one other thing. This is more for the public, who, when they see the full document and they see the 5-year projection that is not part of this public hearing, that they understand that these are staff projections designed to maintain target levels that we have set, various different measures. They haven't been debated by council. They may or may not happen. We could end up needing to have higher taxes. We don't know. 5-year projections are difficult at best. I'm actually reminded in my first job, which was selling computers, you had to make a forecast to the branch manager. And if someone was wandering around and not really, he said, is this a forecast or is this a weather report? And his point was that weather reports are frequently wrong 50% of the time, and the weatherman still keeps his job. But so these are forecasts. I think they've been made with the best available information we have. I would say just parenthetically, and maybe this is for a July item, we should be thinking about how we're going to structure the strategic planning at the end of the year so that we really dig into this expense side.
Yes, certainly we can do that.
Someone asked a question about insurance coverage. I have found out, actually through an NAC meeting, that Aberdeen covers some portion, if not all, of post-retiree medical for its firefighters, which we do not. Southern Pines does not. I think Angie said that they've actually been looking at some possible things we could do, but from a competitive standpoint, to the extent we are hoping to hire 6 more fire people, that is something that we may need to consider, and that will change the budget that we have.
Certainly. So again, I think our goal should be to have a stable tax rate, not one that fluctuates wildly from year to year. Other communities, Whispering Pines, I heard, is looking at a 5 tax increase, and I think we want to avoid situations like that where, you know, we drop it and then raise it back up and seesaw back and forth.
Stability helps our residents plan.
And again, it's a very small dollar amount to each resident. So I think the prudent course forward would be to stick with the 22.5, and you know, as we look at the budget more in detail over the 5 years, hopefully we don't have to increase in the future as much. I think that would be the best way to go forward.
Is anyone else have something they want to jump in with right now, or do we, in case I don't want to miss out any public comments?
Just a correction, the 11 cents would be 3,300,000 per what you said before.
Okay. Well, that's still a pretty big enchilada.
That's a big enchilada.
Yeah, I understand. Jack, you want the mild sauce or the hot sauce with that enchilada?
I just want some food. I don't care.
Okay, all right. All right, well, let me go back to sort of what I raised a little earlier, because I don't want to jam staff on June 10th. So we can either have a sort of a formal vote on whether we reduce it or wait to June 10th, whatever you want to do, because I do want us to.
Yeah, let's have the public hearing. Doesn't look like there's going to be many.
Yeah, that's my point.
But let's do that, and then
close.
you can have a vote on this.
Okay, I think we have. Okay, is just one more time. Anybody in the public who would like to come up and say anything? Hearing none, seeing none. We can have a motion
To adjourn the public hearing and re-enter the regular meeting.
Okay, motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now, I've gotten out of the public hearing. We are back as a council, so to speak. And I think I'm going to take up Doug on his advice to sort of formally propose this one item, and then we can see what the outcome is. My one amendment to this entire budget for FY26 is that the property tax rate be reduced from 22.5 cents to 22 cents, and that the funds necessary to cover that can be utilized from the fund balance authority. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
Could you please restate the motion?
That the property tax rate for FY 2026 would change from 0.22 cents to 0.22 cents.
I will second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We want to have any other comments or debate. We sort of had a pretty good debate or discussion a little while ago. We've went from county tax rate to enchiladas and all those things. So if
Jim Backus moving back to Pinehurst.
yes, okay. So what I'll with the motion in a second, I'll call the motion. Does anyone have anything else they want to say before we do that? Or any question to raise? No. Okay.
All individual.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
We'll start on the right with the enchilada.
The enchilada, thank you. I appreciate the moniker. Thank you there, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it's enough. No, nay.
Aye.
I'll vote aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion fails to cut the tax rate. All righty. Next item is, well, we finished the public hearing. We are back onto ordinances. We have the ordinance 25-8, amending the library expansion capital project fund budget. Oh, I see Dana. So go ahead, Dana.
Good evening, Council. Yes, this is a pretty routine item, I will say, especially as this library capital project progresses. We will do a number of amendments to the budget for the capital project fund. In this case, we're addressing three main items, really on the anticipated revenues side of the budget. The first is increasing the funds transferred from the general fund in the capital project fund to add the $2.8 million that we're transferring this fiscal year. I apologize, I wrote FY26 there. That should say 25 for that first bullet. Had a lot of FY26 on the brain at the time. The second is we did receive a restricted donation of $500 that is specifically to fund landscaping at the new library. We will put those funds, they'll be held in the capital project fund until the time comes where they can be spent for that purpose. But per the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, you can't have revenues in there, you can't spend revenues until they are appropriately budgeted within the fund. So that will add the budget for those $500. And accordingly, having additional funds in the capital project fund, we anticipate earning more investment income. So we're also going to increase the investment income estimated revenues that are within the fund. At this point, all of the known design expenditures are already appropriately budgeted, so the additional funds that we're adding are all going into the construction expenditure line item within the fund. And then later this year, once we know what the bids come in for construction, we'll amend again to increase to that construction line to what's necessary for that, to issue that purchase order for that contract. But at this point, really just getting our budget aligned before the end of the fiscal year, because the budget to actual is presented in the audit report, and so we need to make sure that the revenues are aligned between the budget and the actuals that we'll have by the end of the year.
Dana, just one question. When we receive a donation that has a criteria attached or a restricted use, I assume that we make sure that the restricted use is compatible with the plan we have. Staff reviews that carefully.
Correct. Yes.
Because they're not, I can imagine
Correct.
all restricted use that would be inconsistent.
Absolutely. We have to make sure that, and the donations, the draft donations policy that we had discussed a few months back,
right.
That will be coming to you in June for adoption, addresses kind of those conditions and criteria where, because we as either the staff that are authorized to accept donations or council, if it's one that has to come to you for acceptance, we are allowed to say no for any reason. And so it could be because it is not something we're allowed to spend money on, or that we would not, depending on the nature of what it is, we may not want to have to fund the ongoing cost of maintaining something.
Or it's not
for
consistent
example.
with our objective. Right.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
it just doesn't fit with what the village is looking to do. Yes.
Landscaping obviously is.
We know we're going to spend money on that regardless, and so to accept that was, it did not
Jack,
seem
you were
to
worried
be an
about
issue.
the library being over budget, so that $500 might
Yep.
save us. So
Appreciate that very much.
I would like to thank whoever the individual was, but I think, Dana, you raise a good point, which is we don't want to end up with so many restricted funds that it becomes difficult to administer, even if they are, in theory, for purposes that we could find within the mandate of the library. So, subject to that, that's a nice gift from someone.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be happy as the person in town if we come in under budget. Just wanted to get that on the record.
Well, I would like to see that happen too, because that would increase our fund
No,
balance
next year we can-
availability. Just
Hope everything comes in under
yeah,
budget.
Go the
We-
whole
we-
enchilada.
we get the whole enchilada if we can do that. But okay,
Maybe we should re-vote on the tax rate though, in light of this new information.
okay. Any questions for Dana? Otherwise, no. All right. I don't have any myself. Is there a motion? And we can.
I move to approve ordinance 25-08, amending the library expansion capital project fund.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done deal. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Now we move on to flipping this page on. We've gone. Now we are
Actually,
to general business. Go ahead.
Dana, I meant to raise it before we voted, not that it would have changed the vote, but you show the budget without regard to the fiscal year, so that's the aggregate budget for the project, because the fund is for the life of the project. Is that
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that I understood that. Thanks.
Yep.
So, let's see. This is the accept the resignation of Michael Newman as village attorney. Doug, you've got a memo here. Do you want to fill us in?
Yeah, as you're aware, Michael Newman has submitted his resignation letter effective 90 days from, I believe, May 15th. So Mike Newman has served the village very, very well over the past over 20 years. I think it was 21 years he has been serving in that capacity. So very grateful that he has served so long, that he's willing to help us in the transition. And I can't say enough good things about Mike. He's been very easy to work with, very responsive, and as we move forward, and especially as we get closer to the end of that 90-day period, we'll throw a little get together for him. But we appreciate his service and just wanted to publicly recognize that and say thank you to Mike.
Okay. There's obviously the letter he submitted. Actually, we do have to do a motion. Yeah. So I too, since I joined the council and then as mayor, Mike's advice has always been crisp, and it's always turned out accurate. So I don't know much more you want from a lawyer. So I thank him for his service. 21 years that's a long time. So, appreciate that. All righty. I will, if anyone has any other comments, otherwise we'll entertain
I got a couple comments
Go ahead.
on there, and this is a loss for Pinehurst. Mike Newman has served us very well over these 21 years. He's a North Carolina boy. Went to Wake Forest Law School. I didn't know this until recently, but he actually appeared before the Supreme Court in one of the cases, which is a pretty big feather in any lawyer's hat. Very knowledgeable when it comes to municipal law. Over the past 3.5 years that I have been on the council, it's been amazing to me just the intricacies of that and the knowledge base that's required for it. It's not like you can just pick up from another section of law and jump into municipal law and be well versed at it. But with 21 years, he's been incredibly versed. And with that, it transitions to being very articulate, not only in his spoken word, but also his written word. We've received numerous briefs from him, very comprehensive and very understandable. And he's able to, I guess, dumb it down from the lawyer language to the language that we on the board or the council can understand it. And also provides a very analytical approach to this, which is critical for a lawyer, looking at what the different arguments are and how you can support this versus supporting that. And I want the public to think about what a village attorney has to or a city attorney has to do, because he's not serving one client. He's serving a council, he's serving a manager, he's serving a staff, he's serving Pinehurst. And so there's a variety of different opinions that come out, and a variety of different questions that come out. And so he's got to be able to balance all that out there. He may not agree with the direction that's being selected for how the village is going, but he's required as a lawyer to be able to support that and do that with an ethical and compassionate way, and he's done that. And I'm sure there's many instances in which he's provided direction for us and may not agree exactly how we're proceeding forward, but he's done that with his the professionalism of a lawyer and the dedication that you would expect from that. His excellent communication skills have assisted in facilitating a lot of that. There's been a lot of closed meetings, which we've asked a variety of different questions, and he's been able to work with us on that. And his superb interpersonal abilities, I think, have been an absolute blessing in being able to help this village move forward. So I conclude with what I started with. This is a loss for Pinehurst. We are losing a superb individual who's been involved in a lot of challenging cases for us in a lot of challenging times. And I wish him the best on this, and I thank him for his service. That's all I have. Thank you.
All righty. Other comments, or I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the resignation of Mr. Michael Newman as village attorney, effective 90 days from May 15th, which I believe is August 13th, 2025.
Motion?
Second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Letter accepted. Thank you. Okay, now we go to the topic of other business, item 10 on this regular council meeting agenda. And I will open it up to the council. Jack, I'll ask you. You have other business you want to bring up or
No,
advise us on?
not right now, thank you.
Barb? Okay. John? Dr. Morgan?
I move to reduce the tax rate to 11.5 cents.
Oops, too late.
Is there? Well, that's we're other business here. Is there a second or not?
That's right. Okay. I second that motion.
You do. Okay. Well, I guess we got to vote on that.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
Okay.
So, would you care to address the subject matter at all?
We've addressed it plenty.
Okay. And what do you believe would be the outcome of adoption?
We're dropping. Well, I think it's in a motion and a second already on the floor here.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to vote on it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Opportunity for discussion before the vote.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
have any, but
And
Well, I think we've discussed that before. You're going to take the general fund, basically down to 12 million for this.
right.
That's what it would do,
Okay.
per the math you provided.
Okay. All righty. Any other discussion? Jack, you have an observation at all?
No, I think that's an interesting motion.
Nothing? All right. Let us begin. We'll start at this end this time.
I will have to decline that motion, say no.
Mark? I'm going to vote yes.
no.
Yes.
Okay, the motion fails. 3-2 vote.
Good effort, though.
Yeah. Let the record be show that there was only one member of this council who's voted to cut taxes twice tonight. Okay.
And I think that member is wanting the media to pick that up. I
Okay.
think that's the whole intent. Thank you.
The regular meeting?
All right. We move to adjourn the regular meeting. Is there a
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, why don't we take a 10-minute break and reconvene for the work session.